7 septuplets abandoned by their father. After 20 years, take a look at what they've become. Do you believe it's difficult to raise twins? It was a family of 9 for Mark and Sarah Kaplan. That's a total of 7 children. The Kaplan septuplets were the first set of septuplets to survive childbirth, and as a result, they gained notoriety as quote-unquote miracle children. In contrast to the 6-minute delivery, raising 7 children would take a lifetime of hard effort. Exactly how did they accomplish it? It will be great if you like and share this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that bell icon next to it to get notified when we add new, interesting videos in the future. Now let's get back to the story. Mark and Sarah, who both work in the insurance industry, decided to wed, start a family, and have a large number of children to provide joy and happiness to their family. Sarah's family was opposed to the marriage because they viewed Mark as an irresponsible and dangerous person. But Sarah's determination and love for Mark overcame all obstacles. Indeed, they got married and celebrated their union with the spectacular ceremony and vacation in the Caribbean. After several failed efforts at conception, the unexpected occurred when the doctor informed the spouse that she had partial infertility. The doctor revealed to the wife that she was pregnant one frigid winter day as she was doing laboratory tests in the clinic after the couple had been searching for a cure or therapy for the condition for some time. Sarah was stunned and immediately called her husband, a motor insurance business employee, to give him the wonderful news. Mark was overjoyed to learn of the news, which had come as a complete surprise. Finally, the mood in the household shifted, and the members became excitedly anticipating the arrival of their new addition. During her 7th month of pregnancy, Sarah's husband accompanied her to the hospital when she began to experience labor pains on an irregular basis. He was informed by the nurse that his wife had given birth to 7 children. With this fantastic news, Mark's face was a picture of surprise. 7 newborns were cared for simultaneously by a single family after returning from the hospital a few days earlier. Eventually, Mark lost his job and found himself unemployed. To cope with the pressures of his new situation, Mark relapsed into heavy drinking and late-night partying. He finally left his wife and children because he claimed he couldn't support them financially. Upon the directive of the director, the vehicle insurance business for which Sarah worked increased her pay and guaranteed her a financial loan to open an account in the company for trading purposes. Numerous currency merchants heard of her story, and she was able to pay off her debts because of this. When it comes to hot, trending news stories, you can't go wrong with this one about Sarah. As a result of extensive media coverage, her situation became a topic of national conversation and a topic of debate. Local officials were directed by the city's governor at the time to take care of this woman's family and to pay them with the special monthly allowance. Insurance, medical care, and even education expenditures were all covered by the county, and businesses generously contributed equipment and baby supplies to keep Sarah alive for a while. Insurance companies from throughout the country joined forward to aid Sarah and her children. At that time, the city's governor directed city officials to offer particular financial assistance to this woman and her family. The county also covered the children's insurance, medical, and tuition costs, as well as their college costs. Companies sent equipment and baby supplies to help Sarah get by for a while longer. To aid Sarah and her children, the nation's leading insurance companies stepped in. What happened to them 20 years later? Michael rose to the rank of colonel in the United States Army. As a result of his success on YouTube, George became a household name in the world of currency and stock trading. When it came to Caroline, she landed a spot in a prestigious orchestra and became a well-known musician. Amy became a licensed insurance broker after completing her undergraduate degree. In Miami, Raymond rose to prominence as a prominent general contractor. As a tribute to their mother, Nikki and Sammy started a firm that offered homes to low-income households. In spite of the actions of their father, Sarah feels blessed to have been able to raise so many children. Despite everything, Sarah insists she will forgive him. Here's another story. Why did a California mom abandon 3 babies 3 times? For 3 decades, Joanne Hauser was the only one who knew the truth. Until now, she claims she had kept it a secret from no one. Quote, "I'm tired of hiding. I really am," Hauser told ABC News. Hauser is speaking up for the first time about her 3 children, all of whom she abandoned within a few months of their birth. After all these years, not only were those 3 children reunited, but quote-unquote 2020 and genetic genealogist C.C. Moore were instrumental in helping to bring the fragmented family back together and arrange for Hauser to see them. Quote, "It's not easy to face. It really isn't," unquote, she remarked. After dropping out of college in the 1960s, Hauser embraced a Los Angeles party scene. She recalled, quote, "We were partying all the time, smoking pot and drinking," unquote. She claims to have been married and had 2 children at the age of 22, but the marriage swiftly broke down. The divorced woman claimed to have returned to her old ways of partying. The birth of her first child, Jeanette Barneycoat, happened at a party. Elizabeth Vargas was informed by Hauser that, quote, "I was extremely fearful when I got pregnant. When she became pregnant, she simply said, quote, 'I just never felt like I could tell anybody,' unquote." Hauser gave birth to Jeanette 9 months later as her 2 kids slept in the next room, all by herself in the bathtub of her own house. She stated, quote, "I was terrified. She was born at 4 o'clock in the morning in my recollection. After all, no one was awake and I had to do it on my own. My next step is unclear," unquote. Hauser claimed she came up with the plan to abandon her newborn daughter by claiming to locate the kid in a public location and handing her over to the police. She was already on benefits. Jeanette was adopted by a couple that lived around 100 miles away in the same California county as her birth parents. Quote, "I felt if someone else had her, they could give her a better life than I could," unquote. Hauser said of his decision to give the baby up for adoption. Her second child, Julie Hutchinson, now 31, was also adopted, and Hauser's remorse over Jeanette's loss nearly broke her. However, 5 years after Julie was born, Hauser found herself in the very same situation with her second child. Hauser's son's birthday fell on the same day she gave birth, so she claimed she went to the convenience shop, dropped off Julie, and returned to celebrate her son's birthday. Hauser said, quote, "That was very difficult. You know, I felt like the greatest hypocrite on the planet. How could I be celebrating the birth of one kid and then do something like this to another? What gave me the idea?" Unquote. When Hauser became pregnant with her third child, Dean Hundorf, she was shocked. Quote, "I remember driving around with him in the vehicle and thinking, what can I do? What can I do next? This was really appalling. In other words, I drove him across the block to some neighbors I knew were always present and left him on their porch. A couple from California adopted Dean after he was discovered by a neighbor. Because of this lack of safe haven regulations, people could not leave their children in a fire station, police station, or hospital without being prosecuted. Quote, "If I see a safe haven sign, it gets me every time, now and ever," unquote, Hauser said in an interview with Elizabeth Vargas. On their birthdays, Hauser said, she wondered how the children she had abandoned had fared in the decades after her abandonment. Here's another story. How the world's first ever set of surviving sextuplets was taken care of by their single father. Colin Rosenkowitz became the father of the world's first surviving sextuplets in 1976. Here's how the South African journeyed from growing up in an orphanage to becoming the lone dad of 8 kids. He was born in Mossel Bay, South Africa in 1934, the son of a tailor, Chevelle, and his wife, Rebecca, who were raising their 3 children. During Russia's anti-Jewish violence, his parents escaped Europe for Africa. Chevelle was left with 4 children when Colin's mother died when he was 6 years old. During this time, the war was displacing people and businesses from the area. More than 1,000 kilometers away from their Mossel Bay home, Chevelle sent Colin and his sisters to the Arcadia Jewish Children's Home. When Mr. Rosenkowitz was a kid, quote, "I used to see a lot of my sisters, which was a big help," unquote, he recalled. Quote, "Sundays, my dad would bring a bag of fruit and candy for my sisters and I to split. There were a lot of other moms and fathers who were in the same situation as my dad," unquote. Colin was an orphan for 11 years until he turned 17 and was allowed to go. For 3 of those years, he was left all by himself because his sisters were all grown up. According to him, 350 other orphans were quote-unquote like family to him as well. He became a printer at the age of 17 and relocated to Cape Town, where he would spend hours on the beach pondering how he might land a job on a cruise ship. To make ends meet, Colin gave a bottle of whiskey to a dockside secretary, who in turn gave it to the ship's secretary. Milky Lane and Safari Room, two of London's most popular eateries, would soon be owned by the floating waiter. Susan Perry Fry, a waitress at one of the Earl's Court Road establishments where he first met his wife, played live music. After Colin intervened when a local musician followed Susan home from work, the two became more inseparable. They would get married and have their first child, Samantha, in the following year. Due to the young parents' exhaustion after working 14-hour shifts at the restaurant in London, they decided to relocate to Cape Town, South Africa. Quote, Anthony was born after we returned with our first child. Because we already had a perfect family, we didn't see the need for an additional kid, unquote. However, the Rosenkowitz family's plans did not proceed as expected. A gynecological mistake was made when Susan was given the pill too soon after Anthony was born. As a result, she didn't have a period for 4 years. A fertility injection was eventually used, and all of a sudden, she was pregnant. 1 child became 2, and 2 became 3. Quote, our doctor persuaded us to have 4 children, despite our initial reluctance, and at the end of the 3rd month, we had 4 children. It was too late to get an abortion. Susan was hospitalized frequently. 6 fetuses were found in the womb during an X-ray at 7.5 months. As a result of the arrival of 6 sextuplets in 1974 on the 11th of January, Colin and Susan's lives were irrevocably altered. As the first set in the world, quote, why was I chosen? He used to wonder. Quote, while driving children to school, I had the little ones seated between the knees of the eldest, but they were constantly yelling and fighting. As a result, I would play Bee Gees music and sing along until the room was quiet enough for them to hear me, unquote. It was at this time that Colin and Susan's marriage began to crumble. Quote, for everyone, including me, it was a difficult period in our life, unquote, he said. After Colin and Susan split in 1989, he assumed sole custody of all 8 of their children, responding to the task of parenting sextuplets and 2. Quote, I recall having to visit 26 teachers in one day when I went to their school for parent-teacher interviews at the end of the semester. I still hadn't seen them all by the time it was over at 6 o'clock. When it was finally over, it started to be seen as a joke. Quote, the sextuplets are now 45 years old, and they and their 2 elder siblings are spread out all over the globe, unquote. Anthony, Davis, Elizabeth, Emma, Nicolette, Grant, and Samantha currently live in Australia, while Jason, Anthony's older brother, lives in Ireland. Life carries on as usual for Mr. Rosenkowitz. Quote, so, life goes on. I'm quite happy. Whatever they do, I'm happy for them, unquote. Colin, 85, has spent most of his life struggling financially because of the financial burden of having 8 children. Quote, now is the right moment for me to get going, and while I'm a little late, I'm having fun, unquote. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share the video. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you, and see you on the next one. Bye.